The morning sun barely touched the windows of Kensington Palace when Catherine, the Princess of Wales, sat quietly in her favorite chair. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the letter that would change everything. The royal doctor's words echoed in her mind like a distant thunder. Cancer. The word felt foreign on her tongue, heavy and unwelcome. William found her there an hour later, still clutching the medical report. He didn't need to ask what it said. The look in her eyes told him everything. Without a word, he knelt beside her chair and took her hands in his. They sat in silence, watching their world shift beneath their feet. Outside, London was waking up. People hurried to work, children walked to school, and life continued its normal rhythm. None of them knew that behind the palace walls, two people who had always been symbols of strength were facing their greatest challenge yet. Catherine had always been the picture of grace. From the moment she married William, she had carried herself with quiet dignity. She visited hospitals, supported charities, and raised her 3 children with love and patience. People admired her for her warmth and genuine care for others. Now she wondered how she would tell the world that she was just as vulnerable as anyone else. The next few days passed in a blur of medical appointments and difficult conversations. Specialists explained treatment options while William took careful notes. They talked about surgery, chemotherapy, and recovery times. Each word felt like a stone being added to an already heavy load. Their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, sensed something was different. They were too young to understand the full weight of what was happening, but they could feel the change in the air. Catherine and William knew they would have to find the right words to explain something that even adults struggled to understand. The hardest part was the waiting. Waiting for test results, waiting for treatment plans, waiting to know what the future would look like. Catherine found herself staring out at the gardens, remembering all the times she had walked those paths with her children, planning events, dreaming about tomorrow. Now tomorrow felt uncertain. William became her anchor during those early days. He canceled meetings, rearranged his schedule, and made sure he was always nearby. They had faced many challenges together over the years, but this felt different. This was about life and death, about hope and fear, about finding strength when everything felt fragile. The palace staff noticed the change too. There were fewer public appearances on the calendar. Meetings were postponed. The usual buzz of activity grew quieter. Everyone knew something serious was happening. But they respected the family's privacy and waited for official word. Catherine spent long hours thinking about her role as a mother, as a wife, and as a member of the royal family. She had always tried to be strong for others, to be a source of comfort and support. Now she was the one who needed comfort. The realization was both humbling and frightening. She remembered her own mother's words from years ago about facing difficult times with grace. Her mother had taught her that true strength wasn't about never falling down, but about how you chose to get back up. Those words felt more meaningful now than ever before. The medical team assured them that they had caught the cancer early. The treatment plan was aggressive but promising. Catherine would need surgery followed by several months of chemotherapy. It would be a long road, but there was every reason to hope for a full recovery. As they discussed how to move forward, William and Catherine made a decision that would surprise many people. They would be open about the diagnosis. They would share their journey with the public, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They realized that their experience could help others who were facing similar battles. The decision wasn't easy. Royal tradition often called for privacy during personal struggles. But Catherine and William felt strongly that honesty was important. Too many people faced cancer alone, feeling isolated and afraid. If their openness could help even one person feel less alone, it would be worth it. They began planning how to share the news. It couldn't be a formal announcement read by a palace spokesperson. This was too personal, too important. Catherine wanted to speak directly to the people who had supported her for so many years. She wanted them to hear it from her own voice. The weight of the diagnosis was enormous, but something else was growing alongside the fear. There was a sense of purpose, a feeling that this challenge could become something meaningful. Catherine had always believed in using her position to help others. Now she saw a new way to do exactly that. As the days passed, Catherine found small moments of peace. Watching Louis play in the garden, listening to Charlotte read a story, seeing George's smile when he came home from school. These simple moments reminded her of what she was fighting for and why every day mattered. The support from William never wavered. He researched treatment options, spoke with doctors, and made sure Catherine knew she wasn't facing this alone. Their love had been tested by many things over the years, but this challenge seemed to make their bond even stronger. Friends and family rallied around them. Phone calls came from around the world offering support, prayers, and love. The network of people who cared about them was vast and genuine. It reminded Catherine that she was part of something bigger than herself. The palace staff worked quietly to rearrange schedules and responsibilities. Plans were made for how to handle Catherine's duties during treatment. Everyone understood that her health had to come first, and they were prepared to support her in whatever way she needed. As Catherine prepared for surgery, she felt a mix of emotions. There was fear, certainly, but there was also determination. She had always approached challenges with careful planning and quiet strength. This would be no different. She would face cancer the same way she had faced everything else in her life, with grace, dignity, and hope. The morning of the surgery, William held her hand as they walked through the hospital corridors. Photographers and reporters waited outside, but inside, it was just a husband and wife facing the unknown together. Their love story had begun years ago at university, and now it was being tested in ways they never imagined. But their commitment to each other remained unshakable. The surgery went better than expected. Catherine woke up in a private room with William sitting beside her bed, his hand gently holding hers. The doctors were optimistic. They had removed the tumor successfully, and the early signs were encouraging. But the journey was far from over. Recovery from surgery was harder than Catherine had anticipated. Simple tasks like walking to the bathroom left her exhausted. Her body, which had always been strong and reliable, now felt foreign and weak. William became her constant companion, helping with everything from adjusting her pillows to bringing her favorite tea. The children visited every day after school. They had been told that their mother was sick and needed special medicine to get better. George, being the eldest at 10, seemed to understand more than he let on. He would sit quietly by her bed, showing her his homework or telling her about his day at school. His maturity in the face of uncertainty made Catherine both proud and heartbroken. Charlotte, always the most expressive of the three, brought drawings and handmade cards. She decorated Catherine's room with colorful pictures of flowers and rainbows. "These will help you feel better, Mama," she would say with the confidence that only a 7-year-old could have. Her innocent faith in the power of love and art brought tears to Catherine's eyes more than once. Little Louis, at just 4 years old, didn't fully understand what was happening. He knew his mother couldn't play as much as usual, but he adapted with the resilience of childhood. He would curl up next to her on the bed, his small body warm against hers, and tell her rambling stories about his toy cars and imaginary adventures. As Catherine grew stronger, she and William knew it was time to tell the world. They had kept the diagnosis private during the surgery and initial recovery, but rumors were starting to spread. The absence of public appearances and the increased security around the hospital had not gone unnoticed by the media. They decided Catherine would record a video message. It would be filmed in the gardens at Windsor, where she felt most at peace. The setting was important to her. She wanted people to see her surrounded by life and growth, symbols of hope and renewal. The day of filming was emotional for everyone involved. Catherine had chosen her words carefully, writing and rewriting the speech many times. She wanted to be honest about her diagnosis while also conveying strength and optimism. The message needed to acknowledge the seriousness of her condition without causing unnecessary alarm. William stood just off camera as she spoke. She looked directly into the lens, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was sharing. She talked about the shock of the diagnosis, the support of her family, and her determination to fight. Most importantly, she spoke about hope. "This has been a reminder that life can change in an instant," she said, her words carefully chosen. "But it has also shown me the incredible power of love, both given and received. I am surrounded by people who care, and that gives me strength for the journey ahead." The video was released on a Friday evening. Within hours, it had been viewed millions of times around the world. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages of support poured in from every corner of the globe. World leaders, celebrities, and ordinary people all expressed their love and support for Catherine. The British public's reaction was particularly moving. Flowers began appearing at the gates of all the royal residences. Cards and letters arrived by the thousands. Many were from people who had faced cancer themselves or had lost loved ones to the disease. Their words of encouragement and shared experiences created a sense of community that Catherine found deeply comforting. Social media became a platform for an outpouring of love. The hashtag #StayStrongCatherine began trending worldwide. People shared their own stories of battling illness, their messages of hope, and their admiration for Catherine's courage in speaking so openly about her diagnosis. The response from other members of the royal family was swift and supportive. King Charles, who had recently faced his own health challenges, released a statement expressing his love and support for his daughter-in-law. Queen Camilla stepped in to take on additional duties, ensuring that the royal family's work could continue. Catherine's parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, became regular fixtures at the palace. They helped with the children and provided emotional support for both Catherine and William. The extended family rallied together in a way that reminded everyone that, despite their public roles, they were first and foremost a family dealing with a crisis. The medical team was pleased with Catherine's recovery from surgery. She was healing well and would soon be ready to begin chemotherapy. The treatment plan was aggressive but necessary. 6 months of chemotherapy would give her the best chance of preventing the cancer from returning. As they prepared for the next phase of treatment, Catherine found strength in unexpected places. Letters from children who had faced their own medical challenges particularly moved her. Their brave words and colorful drawings reminded her that courage comes in all sizes and ages. William's role evolved during this time. He had always been protective of his family, but now he became Catherine's advocate and shield. He screened visitors, managed schedules, and made sure she had everything she needed. His love and dedication never wavered, even when the stress of the situation threatened to overwhelm them both. The palace staff adapted to the new reality with professionalism and compassion. Catherine's private secretary worked to reschedule all her commitments for the coming months. The security team adjusted their protocols to accommodate frequent hospital visits. Everyone understood that Catherine's health was the top priority. Preparations for chemotherapy began with detailed discussions about side effects and expectations. Catherine would lose her hair, something she had come to terms with but still found difficult to accept. She ordered several wigs and scarves, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for her children. The decision was made to continue homeschooling George during this period. Charlotte and Louis would continue at their regular school, but with additional support from teachers who understood the family's situation. Maintaining some routine for the children was important to both Catherine and William. As the date for her first chemotherapy treatment approached, Catherine felt a mix of anxiety and determination. She knew the coming months would be difficult, but she also knew she wasn't facing them alone. The love of her family, the support of the public, and her own inner strength would carry her through. The night before treatment began, Catherine and William took a quiet walk through the gardens at Kensington Palace. They talked about their hopes and fears, their plans for the future, and their gratitude for the support they had received. Despite everything they were facing, they felt blessed to have each other and their beautiful children. Catherine looked up at the stars and made a silent promise to herself. She would fight this disease with everything she had. She would recover and return to the work she loved. And she would use this experience to help others who were walking the same difficult path. The first chemotherapy session took place on a gray Tuesday morning in March. Catherine arrived at the hospital early, wearing a simple blue dress and a brave smile. William walked beside her, carrying a small bag with books, snacks, and comfort items for the long day ahead. The treatment would take several hours, and they had prepared for a marathon, not a sprint. The oncology ward was different from anywhere Catherine had been before. Despite her years visiting hospitals in her royal capacity, this was her first time as a patient. The nurses greeted her with professional warmth, treating her with the same care they showed every patient while respecting her privacy and dignity. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Catherine's oncologist, explained each step of the process. The medications would be administered through an IV over several hours. Side effects might include nausea, fatigue, and eventually hair loss. Catherine listened carefully, asking questions and taking notes. Knowledge gave her a sense of control in a situation where so much felt uncertain. William set up a small workspace in the corner of the treatment room. He had brought his laptop and phone, planning to handle some royal business while staying close to Catherine. But as the treatment began, work became secondary. His focus was entirely on his wife, watching for any signs of discomfort and providing quiet companionship. The first few hours passed peacefully. Catherine read a book that Charlotte had chosen for her, a story about a brave princess who overcame great challenges. The irony wasn't lost on her. She dozed intermittently, lulled by the quiet hum of the medical equipment and William's reassuring presence. By afternoon, the nausea began. It started as a mild queasiness but gradually grew stronger. The nurses were prepared with medications to help, but Catherine still felt miserable. This was the reality of chemotherapy that no amount of preparation could fully capture. The medicine that would save her life also made her feel worse than she had ever felt before. The drive home was quiet. Catherine leaned back in the passenger seat with her eyes closed, focusing on breathing steadily. William drove carefully, avoiding bumps and taking the smoothest route back to Kensington Palace. Every pothole felt magnified, every turn seemed too sharp. The simple act of traveling from the hospital to home had become a challenge. The children were waiting when they arrived. They had been briefed about what to expect, but seeing their mother pale and tired was still difficult. George approached first, offering her his arm as she walked slowly from the car to the house. Charlotte had prepared a special pillow fort in the sitting room where Catherine could rest comfortably. That evening was the beginning of a new routine. Catherine would need chemotherapy every 3 weeks for 6 cycles. Each treatment would be followed by several days of feeling unwell, then gradual recovery before the next session. It was a rhythm that would define the next several months of their lives. The support from the public continued to grow. Letters arrived daily, many from people sharing their own experiences with cancer treatment. One letter particularly touched Catherine's heart. It was from an 8-year-old girl named Emma, who had completed treatment for leukemia the previous year. She wrote about losing her hair and how she had learned to see herself as beautiful even without it. Emma's letter came with a small gift, a colorful knitted hat that she had made herself. "This kept me warm during treatment," she wrote in her careful child's handwriting. "Now I want it to keep you warm too." Catherine wore the hat during her second chemotherapy session, finding comfort in this young girl's kindness. As the treatments continued, Catherine's body began to show the effects. Her energy levels dropped significantly. Simple tasks like climbing stairs left her breathless. The glossy hair that had been her trademark began to thin and then fall out in earnest. She had prepared for this moment, but the reality was still shocking. William found her one morning standing in front of the bathroom mirror, holding clumps of hair that had come out during the night. She wasn't crying, but her expression was one of profound loss. Without saying a word, he helped her shave off the remaining hair. They did it together, with quiet dignity, turning a moment of loss into an act of courage. The children adapted to seeing their mother in scarves and hats. Louis, with the acceptance of childhood, simply asked why she was wearing fancy head clothes all the time. Charlotte helped choose which scarf matched each outfit. George said she looked like a warrior princess, which made Catherine smile for the first time in days. The third chemotherapy session was the hardest yet. Catherine's immune system was compromised, making her vulnerable to infections. She had to be extremely careful about exposure to germs, which meant limiting contact with people outside her immediate family. The isolation was almost as difficult as the physical symptoms. During this time, the royal duties that Catherine could no longer perform were quietly redistributed among other family members. William took on additional responsibilities, often working from home so he could be available when Catherine needed him. His dedication never wavered, though friends noticed the toll the stress was taking on him as well. The palace released careful updates about Catherine's progress, balancing the public's desire for information with the family's need for privacy. Each statement was brief but honest, acknowledging the challenges while maintaining an overall tone of optimism. The public appreciated the transparency and continued to send messages of support. Halfway through the treatment schedule, Catherine experienced her lowest point. The cumulative effects of 3 months of chemotherapy had left her feeling defeated. She was sick, exhausted, and struggling to see the end of the tunnel. William found her crying quietly in the garden, sitting on the bench where they had often watched their children play. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," she whispered, her voice barely audible. It was the first time she had expressed doubt about her ability to complete the treatment. William sat beside her, not offering false reassurance but simply being present in her pain. They talked for hours that evening about fear, hope, and the meaning of strength. Catherine realized that acknowledging her struggles didn't make her weak. It made her human. The next morning she felt ready to continue fighting, not because the fear had disappeared, but because she had found a way to carry it alongside her determination. The support network around the family expanded during this difficult period. Catherine's charity work had touched many lives over the years, and now those people wanted to give back. Organizations she had supported organized fundraisers for cancer research. Schools held special assemblies to send messages of encouragement. The love was overwhelming and humbling. Medical professionals around the world followed Catherine's treatment with professional interest and personal concern. Her openness about the experience was helping to reduce stigma around cancer and encouraging others to seek treatment early. Without intending to, she had become an advocate for cancer awareness simply by being honest about her own journey. As spring turned to summer, Catherine began to notice subtle changes. The nausea after treatments didn't last quite as long. Her energy returned a little faster between sessions. The medical team was pleased with her progress, reporting that her body was responding well to the treatment. The light at the end of the tunnel was becoming visible. Planning began for life after chemotherapy. Catherine would need regular monitoring for years to come, but the doctors were optimistic about her long-term prognosis. She started thinking about returning to her royal duties, about the charities she wanted to support, and about the message of hope she could share with others facing similar battles. The fourth treatment session felt different from the others. Catherine was still sick afterward, still tired and uncomfortable, but there was something else present now: hope. She was more than halfway through the treatment plan, and her body was showing signs of healing. The cancer that had once seemed so threatening was being systematically defeated. Summer brought unexpected moments of normalcy back to the Wales family. Between Catherine's fourth and fifth chemotherapy treatments, she felt well enough to join the children for a picnic in the gardens of Anmer Hall, their country home in Norfolk. It was the first time in months that they had all been together outside, enjoying the sunshine and each other's company. Without the shadow of illness hanging over them, William watched from a distance as Catherine played a gentle game of football with Lewis. Her movements were careful and measured, but her laugh was genuine. Charlotte sat nearby, weaving dandelions into a crown for her mother. George read aloud from a book about marine biology, sharing fascinating facts about sea creatures with the enthusiasm that only an 11-year-old could muster. These precious hours felt like a gift. Catherine found herself memorizing every detail: the warmth of the sun on her face, the sound of her children's laughter, the feeling of soft grass beneath her fingers. She had learned not to take such simple pleasures for granted. Every good day was now treasured as something special. The fifth chemotherapy session brought both relief and anxiety. They were nearing the end of the treatment schedule, but Catherine's medical team emphasized that this was not the time to become complacent. The final treatments were just as important as the first ones. Every dose of medication was another step toward ensuring the cancer would not return. During this session, Catherine met another patient who would change her perspective forever. Margaret Thompson was 73 years old and receiving treatment for breast cancer. She had been battling the disease for 2 years, facing setbacks and complications with remarkable grace. Her husband of 50 years, Arthur, sat beside her during every treatment, just as William sat beside Catherine. Margaret and Catherine began talking during their long hours in the treatment room. Despite their different backgrounds and ages, they found common ground in their shared experience. Margaret had raised 4 children while managing a small family business. She spoke about the challenges of being sick while trying to maintain strength for her family. "The hardest part isn't the medicine," Margaret told Catherine during their third encounter. "It's feeling like you're letting everyone down when you can't be the person they need you to be." Catherine nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The guilt of being unavailable for royal duties for her children's needs. For William's support had been almost as difficult as the physical symptoms, but Margaret also shared wisdom gained from her long battle. "I've learned that accepting help isn't the same as giving up," she said. "And sometimes the greatest gift you can give the people who love you is letting them take care of you." These words resonated deeply with Catherine, who had always prided herself on being strong and independent. William noticed changes in Catherine after her conversations with Margaret. She seemed more at peace with the limitations that treatment imposed. She stopped apologizing for needing rest and started accepting offers of help more gracefully. The friendship with Margaret was healing in ways that went beyond medical treatment. As news of Catherine's progress spread, invitations began arriving from cancer support organizations around the world. Hospitals wanted her to visit when she was well enough. Research foundations hoped she would become a patron or spokesperson. The requests were overwhelming in their volume and touching in their sincerity. Catherine and William knew that her experience with cancer would become part of her royal legacy. She had never sought to be a cancer advocate, but circumstances had thrust her into that role. The question was how to use this platform responsibly and effectively. They spent long hours discussing how she could help others without exploiting her own experience. The decision was made to visit a children's cancer ward once Catherine completed her treatment. She wanted to meet young patients who were fighting battles similar to her own. The visit would be private, not a formal royal engagement, but an opportunity for genuine connection and support. Planning for this visit required careful coordination with medical staff and palace officials. Catherine's immune system would still be recovering from chemotherapy, so precautions would be necessary, but she was determined to make the visit happen. She felt a responsibility to use her experience to bring hope to others. The sixth and final chemotherapy treatment was scheduled for early September. As the date approached, Catherine felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Completing treatment would be a major milestone, but it wouldn't mark the end of her cancer journey. Regular monitoring, ongoing recovery, and the psychological adjustment to being a cancer survivor lay ahead. The night before her final treatment, the family held a quiet celebration. They gathered in the sitting room at Kensington Palace, sharing stories and looking through photographs from happier times. Catherine realized that while the past 6 months had been the most difficult of her life, they had also revealed strength she didn't know she possessed. William presented her with a gift that evening, a small silver locket containing photographs of their 3 children. "For courage," he said simply. Catherine put it on immediately and wore it to her final treatment the next day. The weight of it against her chest was a constant reminder of what she was fighting for. The final chemotherapy session felt surreal. Catherine had become familiar with the routine, the nurses, the rhythm of the treatment room. Now she was saying goodbye to all of it. Dr. Mitchell explained that recovery would continue for months after treatment ended. Her energy would gradually return, her hair would grow back, and her immune system would strengthen. Margaret Thompson was there for her final treatment as well. Having successfully completed her own course of chemotherapy the week before, the 2 women sat together, sharing the momentous occasion. Margaret's presence made the day feel less like an ending and more like a graduation. When the IV was removed for the last time, Catherine felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She thanked each nurse individually, knowing that their skill and compassion had been instrumental in her healing. These healthcare workers had seen her at her most vulnerable and had treated her with dignity and kindness throughout the entire journey. The drive home from the hospital felt different this time. Instead of focusing on managing nausea and fatigue, Catherine found herself looking out the window at the world with fresh eyes. The trees were beginning to show their autumn colors. Children were walking home from school with backpacks bouncing on their shoulders. Life was continuing all around her, and she was still part of it. That evening, William helped Catherine record a video message to share with the public. She wanted to thank everyone who had supported her family during the treatment period. The outpouring of love from around the world had been a source of strength that she could never adequately repay. In the video, Catherine spoke about the lessons she had learned during her cancer journey. She talked about the importance of early detection, the incredible dedication of healthcare workers, and the power of community support. Most importantly, she wanted other cancer patients to know that they were not alone in their fights. The palace released the video on a Friday evening, 6 months after Catherine's initial announcement. The response was immediate and emotional. People around the world celebrated her completion of treatment as if it were a personal victory. The hashtag Welcome Back Catherine began trending within hours, but Catherine knew that completing chemotherapy was just one milestone in a longer journey. The months ahead would bring new challenges, rebuilding her strength, returning to public duties, and learning to live with the knowledge that cancer had touched her life. She was ready for all of it, armed with new wisdom, deeper appreciation for life, and the unwavering support of people who loved her. The little girl named Emma, who had sent the knitted hat months earlier, sent another letter. This time it contained a small wooden sign that read, "Warrior Princess" in colorful painted letters. Catherine placed it on her dressing table, where she would see it every morning as she prepared to face each new day with courage and hope. October arrived with crisp mornings and golden afternoons, bringing the first real signs of Catherine's recovery. Her hair had begun to grow back in soft, downy patches that reminded her of a baby bird's first feathers. She found herself running, her fingers through the new growth, marveling at this simple sign that her body was healing. The children noticed the changes in their mother before anyone else. Charlotte was the first to comment on the tiny curls appearing around Catherine's hairline. "Mama, your hair is coming back to say hello," she announced one morning at breakfast. Reaching up to touch the soft new growth with gentle fingers, Louis clapped his hands in delight as if witnessing magic. George, now almost 12 and increasingly aware of the gravity of what his family had endured, seemed to carry himself with new maturity. He helped more around the house without being asked, kept his younger siblings entertained during Catherine's rest periods, and never complained when family plans had to be changed due to her recovery needs. The first post-treatment medical appointment brought wonderful news. Dr. Mitchell reviewed Catherine's blood work and scans with obvious satisfaction. The treatment had been successful beyond their best hopes. There was no detectable trace of cancer in her system. While vigilant monitoring would continue for years, the immediate battle had been won decisively. William squeezed Catherine's hand as they listened to the results. They had hoped for this outcome, prayed for it, but hearing the words spoken aloud felt miraculous. Catherine closed her eyes for a moment, letting the relief wash over her like warm sunshine after a long, cold winter. The planned visit to the children's cancer ward was scheduled for late October. Catherine had been looking forward to this moment. Throughout her treatment, seeing it as an opportunity to give back and offer hope to young patients fighting their own battles. The preparation was extensive, involving medical clearances, security arrangements, and careful coordination with hospital staff. On the morning of the visit, Catherine chose her outfit with special care. She wore a soft lavender sweater and a colorful scarf that covered her still sparse hair. The goal was to look approachable and warm while maintaining the dignity appropriate to a royal visit. Most importantly, she wanted the children to see someone who understood their experience. The children's oncology ward at Great Ormond Street Hospital was decorated with bright murals and cheerful artwork, but Catherine could see past the colorful facade to the serious medical work happening there. Young patients of all ages were fighting for their lives with courage that took her breath away. Her first stop was the room of 7-year-old Jake, who was receiving treatment for a brain tumor. He was bald from chemotherapy, just as Catherine had been weeks earlier. When she removed her scarf to show her own growing hair, Jake's eyes widened with wonder. "You had no hair too?" he asked with the directness that only children possess. "I did," Catherine replied, sitting on the edge of his bed. "And look, it's coming back now. Yours will too." She told him about the soft hat that Emma had knitted for her and how it had kept her warm during treatment. Jake listened intently, then showed her his own collection of colorful beanies that lined his bedside table. In the next room, Catherine met teenage patients who were dealing with different types of cancer. 15-year-old Sarah was struggling with the social isolation that came with hair loss and frequent hospital stays. She confided to Catherine that she felt like she no longer fit in with her friends at school. Catherine understood this feeling intimately. She shared how difficult it had been to feel disconnected from her normal life and responsibilities. "The important people will still be there when you're ready," she told Sarah, "and you'll discover strength you never knew you had." They talked about finding new definitions of beauty and strength that went beyond physical appearance. The visit to the ward's common room was particularly moving. Children of various ages were engaged in art therapy, creating colorful paintings and sculptures. Catherine joined them at a small table, working alongside 10-year-old Marcus to paint a landscape. His steady hands and careful attention to detail impressed her, especially considering he was managing significant side effects from his treatment. "Art helps when the medicine makes me feel sick," Marcus explained matter-of-factly. "I think about the colors instead of thinking about my tummy." Catherine marveled at his wisdom and resilience. These children were teaching her as much as she hoped to teach them. The hospital staff were moved by Catherine's genuine engagement with their patients. Unlike formal royal visits that followed, strict protocols, this was an intimate sharing of experience between people who understood each other's struggles. Nurses later commented that the children talked about the visit for weeks afterward. The story of Catherine's hospital visit was shared carefully with the media, respecting the privacy of the young patients while highlighting the importance of pediatric cancer care. The images of Catherine sitting with children, painting and talking quietly, resonated with people around the world. Here was a princess who had walked through fire and emerged with deeper compassion. As November approached, Catherine began preparing for her gradual return to public duties. Her first official engagement would be small and carefully planned. She chose to attend the opening of a new cancer research facility, an event that connected directly to her own experience and passions. The preparation for returning to public life was more complex than anyone outside the family realized. Catherine had to rebuild her physical stamina for long days of engagements. She worked with a physical therapist to regain strength and endurance. Simple things like standing for extended periods or walking long distances had become challenges during treatment. There was also the psychological adjustment of being in the public eye again. During treatment, Catherine had grown accustomed to privacy and quiet. The thought of crowds, cameras, and constant attention felt overwhelming. William and her support team worked together to create a gradual reintroduction to public life. The new cancer research facility was chosen for her first engagement because it felt meaningful rather than merely ceremonial. Catherine wanted her return to have purpose, to contribute something valuable rather than simply going through the motions of royal duty. The researchers she would meet were working on treatments that could help future patients avoid some of the difficulties she had experienced. In the weeks leading up to the engagement, Catherine received hundreds of letters from cancer patients and survivors around the world. They shared their own stories, offered encouragement, and expressed gratitude for her openness about her diagnosis and treatment. Reading these letters reminded her of the broader purpose her experience could serve. One letter particularly touched her heart. It came from a mother whose 6-year-old daughter had been diagnosed with leukemia shortly after Catherine's announcement. The mother wrote that Catherine's courage in sharing her story had helped the family feel less alone and afraid. The little girl had declared that if a princess could fight cancer, then she could too. These stories reinforced Catherine's commitment to using her platform to support cancer awareness and research. She began planning how to incorporate this advocacy into her royal role moving forward. The experience had changed her permanently, and she wanted that change to benefit others. The night before her first public engagement, Catherine stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the wig she would wear for the event. Her own hair was growing but still too short for public appearances. The wig felt strange after months of scarves and hats, but it would help her feel more confident as she stepped back into the spotlight. William found her there, offering silent support as she prepared for this important milestone. They had come so far from that morning in March when she first received her diagnosis. The journey had tested them in ways they never imagined, but it had also revealed the depth of their love and the strength of their partnership. As Catherine prepared for bed that night, she felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement about returning to public life. Tomorrow would mark a new chapter in her story, one where she could use her experience to help others while resuming the royal duties she had always found meaningful. She was ready to step forward, carrying the lessons of her cancer journey into whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. The morning of Catherine's return to public life dawned clear and bright, as if the universe itself was celebrating her recovery. She woke early, feeling a familiar mixture of nerves and excitement that she remembered from her wedding day years ago. This was another kind of beginning, a step into a future she had once feared she might not see. Her lady-in-waiting had carefully selected her outfit, a navy blue dress that symbolized strength and stability, paired with a pearl necklace that had belonged to Diana. The choice was deliberate and meaningful. Catherine wanted to honor the memory of William's mother while marking her own journey from patient back to princess. The drive to the cancer research facility was quiet. William sat beside her in the car, their hands intertwined. No words were needed. They both understood the significance of this moment. Catherine looked out the window at the London streets, seeing them with eyes that had been changed by her experience. Every person walking on the sidewalks, every child playing in a park, every flower blooming in a window box seemed more precious than before. A small crowd had gathered outside the research facility. When Catherine stepped out of the car, the response was immediate and emotional. People applauded, some wiped away tears, and many held signs with messages of support. "Welcome back, Catherine," read one banner. "Our warrior princess," declared another. The warmth of their reception was overwhelming. Inside the facility, Catherine met with researchers who were working on groundbreaking treatments for various types of cancer. Dr. Elizabeth Porter, the lead scientist, explained how new immunotherapy approaches could help patients avoid some of the harsh side effects of traditional chemotherapy. Catherine listened intently, asking detailed questions that reflected her personal understanding of treatment challenges. "Your openness about your experience has already made a difference," Dr. Porter told her. "We've seen increased funding for our research and more. Patients seeking early screening because of your courage in sharing your story." Catherine felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing that her difficult journey was helping to pave an easier path for others. The facility tour included a meeting with current patients who were participating in clinical trials. Catherine spoke with each person individually, sharing quiet words of encouragement and hope. Her genuine empathy was evident in every interaction. These weren't formal royal pleasantries. These were conversations between people who understood each other's struggles. One patient, a young mother named Rebecca, broke down in tears when Catherine took her hand. "I was so scared when I was diagnosed," Rebecca whispered. "But seeing you fight and win gave me hope that I could do it too." Catherine hugged her gently, both women finding strength in their shared experience. The visit concluded with Catherine delivering a brief speech to the research staff and medical community. She spoke without notes, her words coming from the heart rather than from a prepared script. She talked about the fear that comes with a cancer diagnosis, the importance of hope during treatment, and the incredible work being done to find better cures. "6 months ago, I stood in a very different place," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I was afraid, uncertain, and facing the biggest challenge of my life. Today I stand here healthy and grateful, but also forever changed. Changed by the experience of being vulnerable, changed by the incredible care I received, and changed by the knowledge of how precious each day truly is." The audience listened in complete silence, many visibly moved by her words. When she finished speaking, the applause was long and heartfelt. Catherine had successfully transformed her personal struggle into a message of hope and advocacy that would benefit countless others. The media coverage of her return was extensive and overwhelmingly positive. Headlines around the world celebrated her recovery and praised her commitment to helping others. The images from the research facility visit showed a woman who had been through a profound experience and emerged with deeper purpose and compassion. In the days following her first engagement, Catherine received thousands of new letters from people around the world. Cancer patients wrote to thank her for giving them hope. Healthcare workers expressed gratitude for her support of their profession. Parents of sick children found comfort in her example of strength and recovery. The children adapted quickly to having their mother back in the public eye. They had always been proud of her royal role, but now they seemed to understand it differently. George told his classmates that his mother was helping sick people feel better. Charlotte drew pictures of Catherine visiting hospitals. Louis simply hugged her extra tight each morning before she left for engagements. William watched his wife's return to public life with a mixture of pride and protectiveness. He had seen her at her weakest moments and now witnessed her transforming that vulnerability into strength that could help others. Their partnership had been tested and proven unbreakable. Catherine gradually increased her public engagements throughout the winter months. Each event was carefully chosen to align with her new advocacy for cancer awareness and research. She visited hospitals, met with support groups, and spoke at fundraising events. Her calendar began to fill again, but with a different sense of purpose than before. The first anniversary of her diagnosis approached in March. Catherine marked the date privately with her family, reflecting on the year that had changed everything. They planted a small garden at Anmer Hall, choosing flowers that would bloom throughout the seasons as a symbol of renewal and hope. She also visited Margaret Thompson, her friend from the treatment center, who had become like a surrogate grandmother to her children. Margaret was doing well, enjoying her own recovery and spending time with her family. Their friendship had deepened beyond their shared cancer experience to become a genuine bond between two strong women. As spring returned, Catherine's hair had grown enough that she could appear in public without a wig. The new style was shorter than before, but it suited her and served as a visible symbol of her journey. She received countless compliments on her appearance, but more importantly, she felt like herself again. The transformation in Catherine was noticed by everyone who knew her. She remained the same caring, dedicated person she had always been, but there was a new depth to her compassion and a fiercer appreciation for life. Her speeches became more personal and powerful. Her interactions with people facing challenges were more meaningful and authentic. William often reflected on how their love story had evolved through the cancer journey. They had married as young people full of hopes and dreams. They had grown together through the responsibilities of royal life and parenthood. But facing the possibility of loss had revealed new dimensions of their commitment to each other. The annual Trooping the Color ceremony in June marked a significant milestone. Catherine appeared on the Buckingham Palace balcony with her family, waving to the crowds below. Many people in the audience remembered watching her cancer announcement video just over a year earlier. Now she stood healthy and radiant, a living symbol of hope and recovery. Behind the public celebrations, Catherine continued her private advocacy work. She met regularly with cancer organizations to discuss how she could best use her platform. Plans were made for a major cancer awareness campaign that would launch the following year. Her experience would become a force for positive change in cancer care and research. As the year drew to a close, Catherine looked back on a journey that had taken her from fear to hope, from patient to advocate, from isolation to deeper connection with others. The cancer had tried to break her, but instead it had revealed strength she never knew she possessed. On New Year's Eve, as fireworks lit up the London sky, Catherine stood on the terrace at Kensington Palace with William and their children. She thought about all the people who were still fighting their own battles with cancer, all the families facing difficult diagnoses, all the researchers working to find better treatments. She made a quiet resolution to use every healthy day she had been given to make a difference in their lives. The little girl who had once dreamed of being a princess had become something even more important, a beacon of hope for people facing their darkest hours. Her story of survival would continue to inspire and encourage others for years to come. The nation that had wept for their beloved princess now celebrated her triumph. But more than that, they had witnessed a transformation that reminded everyone of the power of courage, love, and hope in the face of life's greatest challenges. Catherine had not just survived cancer. She had used the experience to become a more powerful force for good in the world.